can't imagine there's many people that think Dillon Gabriel's a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders. I don't care where they were drafted. And if the Browns are the one team that thinks that, then I'm going to suspect it's not true. They don't know what
listen,
they're doing.
They've been on every quarterback evaluation for 30 years.
Right.
I never root against anybody.
Yeah.
But I'd be surprised if Dillon Gabriel's ever a legitimate starting quarterback for the Cleveland.
Dillon Gabriel thought he could make a splash with a flashy shoe stunt, but instead it only highlighted the massive gap between him and Shedeur Sanders. Where Sanders' logo drop sent sales soaring and drew national headlines, Gabriel's attempt landed flat, drawing more laughter than loyalty. In a league where perception drives opportunity, this wasn't just a bad look. It was a clear reminder that Gabriel is playing in Sanders' shadow, and right now he's losing badly. TV ratings spiked 28% the moment Shedeur Sanders took the field in his first Browns preseason action, but those same numbers cratered when Dillon Gabriel was under center. That contrast tells the entire story of where Cleveland's fan energy and business momentum really is. Gabriel's so-called shoe stunt was supposed to be his way of carving out an identity, a viral moment that could spark buzz and maybe even ignite some retail traction. Instead, it had the opposite effect. Merchandise trackers reported that Sanders' branded gear, particularly his Nike line, sold out within hours of its release, while Gabriel's drop barely moved the needle, with resale prices falling under face value in just 48 hours. Fans aren't blind to the optics here. One quarterback has cultural pull and proven marketability, while the other is forcing a narrative that doesn't exist. The Browns front office is also paying attention because in the NFL, marketing leverage is currency. Sanders' rise has coincided with a 12% increase in Cleveland's national preseason broadcasts compared to last year, when the team's games ranked in the lower third of viewership. On the flip side, Gabriel's appearances drew local interest, but no national pop, with streaming figures dipping by several 100,000 compared to the week Sanders played. This isn't a minor gaps, it's a fundamental split between a quarterback who draws eyes and another who fades when the lights hit. That kind of measurable difference influences not only depth chart decisions, but sponsorship dollars and ticket sales. Consider the secondary ticket market. Once Sanders was announced as a likely QB2 candidate behind Deshaun Watson, average resale prices for Browns preseason seats jumped from $42 to $67, a 59% surge. When Gabriel's shoe stunt hit the headlines, however, prices slid back down into the 30s, reflecting a clear lack of buyer excitement. Fans weren't clamoring to see Gabriel play. If anything, they were laughing at the gimmick. That's the brutal truth about brand equity in sports. If the market doesn't believe in you, no amount of stunts can reverse that narrative. Sanders is authentic in his appeal. Gabriel, by contrast, comes across as manufactured. On-field performance only reinforced those optics. In his limited reps, Sanders completed 72% of his preseason passes, showing poise and anticipation even against second-string defenses. Gabriel, in the same stretch, barely cleared 58% with missed reads and hesitation on quick-out throws that are supposed to be automatic in Stefanski's offense. The margin is more than stats, it's the confidence factor. Sanders looked like he belonged, and fans responded accordingly. Gabriel, weighed down by the fallout of his failed shoe promotion, looked like he was pressing to prove something that wasn't there. The long-term impact of that miscalculation is significant. Sponsors look at engagement metrics when deciding where to allocate their dollars, and in the weeks following Sanders' gear release, Cleveland saw a 34% uptick in social media impressions tied directly to Browns' official channels. Gabriel's rollout, by contrast, barely cracked 3%. In today's NFL, those numbers aren't just vanity. They drive at revenue, jersey sales, and even broadcast placement. It's why analysts are already framing this as a lopsided battle. Sanders isn't just winning on the field, he's controlling the conversation off it. Gabriel tried to step into that lane with a stunt, but instead he reminded everyone he's no Shedeur Sanders. Losing those reps means Kevin Stefanski has no film to evaluate Dillon Gabriel with the starters, and that's where the real damage of this failed shoe stunt bleeds into football relevance. While Gabriel was busy pushing a marketing play that never stuck, Shedeur Sanders was stacking meaningful reps that now have the coaching staff leaning his way in the quarterback battle. Numbers don't lie. Sanders has logged 114 snaps through preseason and camp with first-team offensive linemen, while Gabriel has only been given 62, many of those in second-team walkthroughs. That imbalance matters because it's the film room where jobs are won, and right now, Gabriel simply doesn't have enough live-action tape to argue his case. The contrast extends into the depth chart positioning. Sanders has already been penciled in as quarterback 2 on several internal practice rotations, while Gabriel is sliding toward toward a developmental designation. Browns insiders have noted that in red zone reps, Sanders received 70% of the work, and Gabriel was left with mop-up duty in low-leverage situations. When a quarterback becomes an afterthought in situational football, it isn't just about today's practice notes. It signals long-term organizational trust. Gabriel's shoe stunt, intended as a branding boost, has instead become symbolic of wasted focus. For the team's business side, the timing couldn't have been worse. Cleveland's preseason ratings had been climbing, jumping 32% year over year once Sanders took the field. But the week Gabriel headlined, numbers dipped by nearly 500,000 viewers nationally. That's a swing no front office ignores. Advertisers pay premiums for games that hold audience, and the gap between Sanders-driven ratings and Gabriel-driven ratings translates into millions in potential ad revenue lost or gained. Even in sports betting markets, the divide is obvious. Sportsbooks reported a 48% drop in Browns-related prop bets during the week Gabriel played extended minutes, while wagers spiked again once Sanders was announced as a primary backup option. This isn't just football, it's economics, and Gabriel is on the wrong end of it. Inside the locker room, credibility is equally fragile. Players talk, and they see which quarterbacks take command of the offense without distractions. Sanders' demeanor has been described as all business, while Gabriel's stunt painted him as unserious at the exact moment leadership was on trial. Offensive linemen aren't going to block harder because their quarterback has a shoe line, and receivers aren't going to fight through tight windows if they don't believe the ball will arrive. Sanders is earning that trust. Gabriel is eroding his. That's why the Browns' offense has averaged 6.4 yards per play when Sanders has been under center in camp scrimmages, compared to just 4.9 when Gabriel has led the huddle. Fans have already drawn their conclusion, and it's measurable in consumer behavior. Jersey sales for Sanders eclipsed Gabriel's by a margin of nearly 5-1 in the past month, with Sanders number 14 cracking the NFL's top 20 rookie jerseys sold nationwide. Gabriel's never made the list. That gap becomes self-reinforcing. Sanders' popularity leads to more visibility, which leads to more reps, which leads to better performance opportunities. Gabriel, boxed out by his own failed attempt to grab attention, is watching the cycle spin in the other direction. The urgency here is that Cleveland has to decide quickly who will be their true insurance plan behind Watson. Sanders' upward momentum makes that decision easier, while Gabriel's lack of traction on the field and in the market makes him harder to justify. In an NFL where quarterback depth is currency, Gabriel's stock is falling fast. His shoe stunt wasn't just a gimmick, it became the tipping point in how both fans and the organization perceive his future. The Browns can't afford to waste time on a backup who doesn't inspire confidence, and right now, Sanders is the only one creating tangible value for this franchise. Unlike Patrick Mahomes' rookie year, where he could sit behind Alex Smith and let his talent quietly build a reputation, Dillon Gabriel doesn't have the luxury of patience or trust from the organization. Every rep, every public move is scrutinized, and instead of letting his play set the tone, he leaned on a shoe stunt that instantly reminded analysts of failed quarterback branding experiments in the past. Johnny Manziel entered Cleveland with more hype than production, pushing autographed memorabilia and personal endorsements before securing his spot on the field. Baker Mayfield filmed commercials before winning playoff games, and that mismatch between image and output stuck with him through his entire Browns tenure. Gabriel now finds himself in that same conversation, a quarterback leaning on off-field narratives without the on-field proof to justify them. Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, has followed a blueprint that works. He let his father's marketing legacy open the door, but then he delivered measurable results both in college and now in early NFL camp reps. At Colorado, Sanders' first season saw merchandise sales jump 700% compared to the year prior, with his personal jersey topping NCAA charts. That momentum carried directly into Cleveland, where preseason Nielsen ratings showed a 36% spike in younger demographics. 18 to 34-year-olds tuning into Browns broadcasts when Sanders was featured. Gabriel has no such pull. His shoe stunt was supposed to generate that cultural stickiness, but instead resale values collapsed and social engagement stalled at barely a fraction of Sanders' numbers. The comparison doesn't just stop at branding, it bleeds into pure football comps. Sanders' preseason completion percentage, hovering above 70%, mirrors early efficiency numbers from quarterbacks like Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott, both of whom seized backup jobs by proving accuracy in live reps. Gabriel's 58% completion rate falls closer to names like Paxton Lynch Leach and Kyle Laletta, developmental quarterbacks who were marketed as potential projects but never gained traction. When evaluators put numbers side by side, it becomes clear which trajectory Gabriel is aligning with and which lane Sanders is already in. Even in ticketing and fan behavior, the comps are harsh. When Sanders was announced as suiting up for Cleveland's preseason game against the Eagles, average secondary ticket prices surged into the $90 range, nearly doubling face value. By contrast, Gabriel's extended run against the Commanders saw resale markets crater, with average prices under $40, some even dipping below original ticket cost, a classic indicator of low demand that mirrors historical cases like Tim Tebow's brief stint with the Jets, where initial buzz drew ticket spikes, but once fans realized there was no sustained production, the bottom fell out. Sanders is sustaining demand, Gabriel is exhausting it before it even starts. For sponsors, history is also instructive. Nike has already leaned into Sanders' image, betting on him as the Browns' breakout star, much the same way they once positioned Odell Beckham Jr. with his one-handed catch momentum. Gabriel's lack of traction is reminiscent of players like Robert Griffin III after his rookie season. Heavy early push, then quick market retreat once durability and performance faltered. Gabriel's shoe stunt is a textbook example of a player trying to accelerate his brand without a foundation, and it backfired to the point where Cleveland media mocked it instead of promoting it. Even the locker room parallels matter. Sanders' early poise has drawn comparisons to Russell Wilson's rookie demeanor, where teammates instantly bought into his leadership. Gabriel, however, risks aligning more with Menziel or Mayfield, quarterbacks who divided locker rooms with off-field antics. That kind of split is hard to recover from, and Cleveland has seen this story before. If Sanders is echoing the path of steady risers who marry marketing with production, Gabriel looks dangerously close to repeating the mistakes of quarterbacks who burned bright off the field but fizzled when it mattered. The numbers amplify the divide. Sanders' social media following grew by nearly 400,000 in the past 6 months, correlating with Nike's sales spike and Brown's preseason national coverage. Gabriel's growth was barely measurable, and his shoe rollout drew fewer than 20,000 interactions league-wide, a stat that's dwarfed even by practice squad players who went viral for single highlights. In a league obsessed with marketability, those comparisons are brutal, and they define who gets the next opportunity. Merchandise is the cleanest scoreboard, and right now it shows Dillon Gabriel has no lane against Shedeur Sanders. When Sanders' first Nike-branded logo drop hit shelves, pairs of his signature cleats sold out in less than 6 hours online, with resale prices climbing into the $300 range, nearly triple retail. In contrast, Gabriel's stunt rollout saw unsold inventory sitting in warehouses, with local Cleveland outlets discounting pairs by 40% just to move them. That measurable gap isn't just about design, it's about consumer belief. Fans believe in Sanders' brand because it's tied directly to his play and presence, while Gabriel's came across as an unearned shortcut. Sponsors saw the same story in engagement. Social analytics showed a 34% surge in Browns-related interactions during Sanders' shoe launch week, while Gabriel's attempt barely nudged the needle, registering a meager 3% uptick. Those numbers translate into hard business decisions. Brands want to invest in quarterbacks who can drive measurable impact, and right now, Sanders is outperforming Gabriel by an order of magnitude. Cleveland's front office knows this matters for negotiations with apparel partners and in shaping the team's marketing identity. Every time Sanders' numbers climb, it strengthens his case not just as a quarterback too, but as the future face of the franchise. Ticket sales offer another perspective. In the 2 preseason games where Sanders was announced as active, average attendance at First Energy Stadium topped 66,000, a jump of nearly 4,500 seats over the baseline. Secondary markets reflected that excitement too, with average resale prices up by 52%. The one game Gabriel's shoe stunt coincided with his extended reps. Attendance dipped back under 60,000 and resale value fell to just a shade above face. Fans vote with their wallets, and those votes are saying Sanders is worth the trip, Gabriel isn't. Sportsbooks also highlight the divide. Wagering data showed Browns prop bets increasing 41% when Sanders was in line for snaps, especially on offensive totals. When Gabriel took over, sportsbooks reported a sharp 48% drop in activity related to Cleveland, a rare swing for preseason football. Bettors simply didn't trust Gabriel to move the offense, and that lack of confidence ripples outward. Fewer bets mean less national chatter, less exposure, and less energy behind the team. In a league where gambling partnerships pump billions into revenue, a quarterback who fails to inspire even betting action is a liability. immediately. Fan sentiment has been brutal as well. Local radio call-ins and national Twitter chatter both frame Gabriel's shoe stunt as tone-deaf, with phrases like "trying to be Shedeur" trending in Brown circles. Meanwhile, Sanders' rollout drew praise from Hall of Famers and national analysts alike, many pointing out how polished the execution was. Sentiment analysis shows over 70% positive reception for Sanders' gear, compared to barely 15% positivity for Gabriel's. That's not a minor perception gap, it's a gulf that influences who teammates respect, who sponsors back, and who fans rally behind. Even within the locker room, the optics carried weight. Reports surfaced that several veterans openly teased Gabriel about his unsold inventory, a small but telling sign that his credibility took a hit inside the building. Contrast that with Sanders, whose presence has been described as energizing to younger players and respected by veterans who see him handling business the right way. That dynamic matters when a coach is deciding which quarterback to trust in late game situations. One player is building cultural equity, the other is burning it. All of this paints a larger picture. Gabriel's misstep isn't just a failed shoe launch, it's a missed chance to build momentum in a league where image and performance intertwine. Sanders has managed to convert both into rising stock, while Gabriel's brand feels stuck in quicksand. Fans, sponsors, and teammates have already made their verdict clear, and Cleveland's front office can read the numbers as easily as anyone. If Dillon Gabriel keeps leaning on stunts instead of stacking production, the future is brutally predictable. He'll slide down the depth chart, and the Browns will have no choice but to make Shedeur Sanders their long-term insurance plan behind Deshaun Watson. Cleveland has already seen enough to recognize where the momentum lies. Sanders is trending toward the role of franchise face, a quarterback who not only draws eyeballs but keeps them glued. Gabriel, meanwhile, is veering toward the path of being labeled a camp arm. Valuable for reps, expendable when roster cuts arrive. NFL front offices don't forgive repeated miscalculations, and the shoe stunt is now etched into Gabriel's resume as a red flag. The business side of this decision will accelerate the split. If Sanders continues driving ticket sales the way he has, resale markets jumping 50% whenever he's active, ownership has every incentive to elevate his profile quickly. Sponsors and apparel companies are already positioning themselves to ride Sanders' rise, and that creates financial pressure on the team to keep him front and center. Gabriel can't offset that with underwhelming play and gimmicks. If his next preseason appearances don't show marked improvement in efficiency and command, the Browns will have no justification to keep giving him valuable reps. Playoff odds also factor in, even though Sanders isn't the starter yet. Analytics show that teams with a capable, marketable quarterback gain hidden equity, both in locker room confidence and in external narratives. With Sanders as the backup, Cleveland's perceived odds of making a deep run actually rise in betting markets, a subtle but telling sign of belief in his trajectory. Gabriel, by contrast, doesn't move those numbers. In fact, sportsbooks adjusted Cleveland's live game lines negatively when Gabriel entered, a measurable reflection of lowered expectations. That kind of shift isn't theoretical, it directly impacts how the league and fans evaluate the Browns' ceiling. There's also a forward-looking roster calculus. If Sanders becomes entrenched as quarterback 2, it sets him up as the natural successor should Watson falter or injuries mount. That kind of positioning puts him on a 5-year trajectory to be the face of Cleveland football, with his marketability and playmaking combining into a rare package. Gabriel, unless he reinvents himself quickly, risks fading into the journeyman track, bouncing between practice squads, trying to stick as a third stringer. In the NFL's ruthless economy, one quarterback's rise is often directly tied to another's fall, and this situation is a textbook example. The fan base is already projecting into the future. Polling from Cleveland sports outlets shows over 70% of fans want Sanders elevated to quarterback 2 immediately, while fewer than 10% view Gabriel as a long-term option. Those numbers matter because they influence ticket renewals, merchandise campaigns, and even TV network choices for primetime scheduling. Networks don't flex games around backup quarterbacks, but they do pay attention when one becomes a cultural figure, and Sanders is already inching toward that status. Gabriel isn't even in the conversation. If Gabriel continues down this path, his NFL career could mirror past quarterbacks who tried to market themselves before establishing credibility. The difference now is that the stakes are higher, with Sanders accelerating accelerating faster than most rookies in both brand and play. The Browns can't afford distraction at the most important position in football, and Gabriel has given them little reason to keep believing. The shoe stunt wasn't just a marketing flop, it may be the domino that tips the organization fully towards Sanders' future. Dillon Gabriel's failed shoe stunt has now become a cautionary tale inside Cleveland. It wasn't just a missed marketing opportunity, it was a vivid reminder of how quickly the NFL separates authenticity from gimmick. Shedeur Sanders is already proving that when performance and presence align, the market responds, with higher ratings, stronger ticket sales, and surging merchandise. Gabriel, on the other hand, tried to manufacture that same momentum without the production to back it up, and the result was a credibility hit that will stick with him far longer than the shoes themselves. The Browns now have a clear picture of their quarterback room, and the contrast couldn't be sharper. Sanders is gaining momentum as a true asset, both on the field and at the business level, while Gabriel is burning equity with every misstep. In a league where opportunities shrink fast, this backfire could be the moment that defines the arc of his career. For Cleveland, it simplifies the decision. The future is already leaning towards Sanders, and the fans, sponsors, and numbers all agree. But here's the bigger debate. Do you think Gabriel is hurting his chances more with these off-field distractions than with his actual play? And is Sanders already becoming the face of Cleveland football before he's even locked down a starting role?